Welcome to Wash Park at Mosaic for our Sunday service. Everyone is welcome here, no matter what stage you are in your faith journey. I especially want to welcome all those online. You are important to our community and its work. And today, Catherine Rodriguez will be our reader online. I am Beverly Rexrode, the vice moderator for this year. Our pastor, Lee Berg, is recovering from extensive back surgery. He's up there on the little box. And hopefully he'll give us an update during our joys and concerns. Originally, we planned to have Deanna Flahive speak today. And I'm sorry if you came with that in mind. She will be here in a few weeks. Her husband had serious fall last week, and she was just not able to get everything together for today. So she was a fill-in for Lee, and I'm a fill-in for Deanna. So I'm a fill-in for the fill-ins. So, our message today will be on immigration, and it's a little different twist because it's a story that I have, a true story from when I taught ESL 15 years ago to immigrants. This has been a very difficult week for our immigrant families and our community. With the detention of Jeanette Vizguera. I don't know if you know, but when we were doing overnights at the First Unitarian Church for our Women's Homelessness Initiative, she was downstairs in sanctuary at that time. And she has been detained this week. I believe that there is a upcoming hearing for her. And we do not want to have her deported. Let's keep her and our other detained immigrants in our prayers. And we're going to have a special remembrance in a few moments for all of the detained immigrants. Now we need some time to center ourselves, seeking God's presence and peace during this time. We will have a few moments of silent meditation, and then it will be followed by our call to celebration. So let's take some moments for ourselves and center. Catherine?
Please join me in the call to celebration. God of earth and sky and of seas, forests, mountains, and meadows.
We give thanks for your creation, and we celebrate your family of life.
God of stars and planets, of bugs and birds, and all creatures great and small.
We give thanks for your good creation, and we celebrate your family of life.
Open us, God, to the wonder of your good creation, its beauty and grace.
And even for those parts we have a hard time with, like wasps or foxes eating baby rabbits, we still give thanks for cycles of life and everyone's part in it.
Open us, God,
to
gratitude and celebration. Open us also, O God, to the pain of your good creation, to the cries of all your children.
Give us courage, feel of grief and outrage, and to work towards justice and healing for all.
On March 17th, Jeanette Vizguera, a longtime Denver community leader and actually one who visited our congregation about 8 years ago. She was a longtime leader and is a longtime leader and advocate for immigration rights. And she was arrested by ICE outside her workplace. According to her daughter, a few of the ICE officials laughed in her face as they arrested her. ICE had no valid deportation orders. She was taken to the GEO Immigration Detention Center. She was briefly able to call her daughter before the facility cut off phone access. On Friday, a federal judge ordered ICE and administration officials not to deport Jeanette until her case is tried, and her family is now finally able to visit her. Jeanette has led the fight against her own deportations since 2009. In 2017, Jeanette was recognized as one of Time magazine's most influential people for standing up against oppressive immigration systems that sought to separate her and so many others from their children. Jeanette has lived in Colorado for almost 30 years, immigrating to Colorado from Mexico with her husband and eldest daughter. Her 3 younger children are American-born U.S. citizens. In 2009, Jeanette was pulled over for a minor traffic violation. When she refused to answer the police officer who asked her if she was in the country illegally, she was arrested. She pleaded guilty to 1 misdemeanor count when they found a false Social Security card in her purse. She served her time, 21 days in jail, and then sued ICE to block her deportation. She has been fighting deportation ever since, taking sanctuary for many years in 2 Denver churches. She has been advocating for rights in immigrants all those years, even from the basement of the Unitarian Church. Many of us have already taken some action, signing petitions, donating for legal defense funds, calling our representatives, attending vigils. The fight goes on, and many more will join in. In fact, another rally is planned for tomorrow night, Monday, 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock at the ICE detention facility. While thoughts and prayers alone are never enough, we still want to hold Jeanette and all others illegally detained in our hearts in the context of our worship service. So we will light a candle for Jeanette and for others. We will light a candle for Mahmoud Khalil, who was arrested by federal immigration enforcement agents on March 8th because of his pro-Palestinian advocacy last spring. Mr. Khalil is a graduate student at Columbia University and a lawful permanent resident. He was put on a plane and sent to a detention facility in Louisiana. So we will light this candle, blue candle, for Jeanette and for Mahmoud and for all those illegally detained and for the disappeared in our country. Let us continue to take actions, any actions that we can take, calling representatives, senators, donating, showing up at rallies. We cannot normalize this stuff. We cannot allow these illegal deportations and detentions to continue.
Circle round for peace, for all those in prison. Circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us in prison, circle for release, circle for the flag, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us in prison. Circle for release, circle for the the land, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole.
Reading from Micah 6, verses 6 to 8. What God requires. With what shall I come before the Lord and bow down myself before God on high? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, with tens thousands of rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? He has told you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God?
You know, before the service, I was walking around with what I was going to say, and I was looking for a pencil, and I put it down someplace, and then it was like, where did I leave it? I had a brief 5 minutes of what have I done with what I was going to say, and I eventually did find it, so you will have the original and not just me trying to remember what I was going to say. Anyway, okay. When we lived in Virginia, I spent many years teaching English as a second language at our church. It was a wonderful program with about 80 adult students from many different countries, speaking all different kinds of languages and different levels of English. After I retired from my day job, I was asked to take over leading the program. At first, I said no. I loved the one-on-one contact with the students, and I didn't want to give that up. But when no one else stepped up, I agreed. And that's when I realized my time commitment had doubled, and it came with a lot of new challenges. How do you teach such a diverse group of people? With a dedicated team of volunteers, we held classes twice a week, grouping students by their English level. Some had strong educational backgrounds. And I'll say, especially some of the ones from Asia, they knew more grammar than I could remember. Some of the others from other countries had much better pronunciation. Some of the ones with the best grammar had the worst pronunciation. Some had never gone to school at all, never learned to read. And those were the hardest ones to place. And that's where Seema comes in. And I'm not using her real name. Seema was from a small remote village. And that's, if we could put that up. We're from a small remote village in Morocco. She had never been to school. Instead, she stayed home caring for her parents as they grew older. How did she end up in Northern Virginia? Her brother, who was educated, helped her get a job as a nanny and housekeeper for a Moroccan family. The husband had been working at the World Bank in Washington, D.C. Her employers decided she needed to learn more English, so they enrolled her in our program. Seema started in our beginner class, but it didn't take long to see that she was struggling. She wasn't grasping the lessons, and it was becoming frustrating, not just for her, but for the others in the whole class. She had never learned to read or write in her own language. And that's where Virginia stepped in. She was a retired public school ESL teacher in our church, and she offered to tutor Seema one-on-one. Over time, she became not just a teacher, but also a mentor and a friend. You can see here, this is the class, some of them on a night, and here is Seema and her teacher. Then one day, Virginia came to me with a concern. Seema's employers were taking advantage of her. She was working long hours for low pay with little time off. By American standards, that was not fair. But by Moroccan standards, this was normal and actually better than what she had at home. So what should we do? If we reported this situation, Seema would almost certainly be sent back to Morocco, where she might not even be welcomed by her family. But if we did nothing, were we allowing an injustice to continue? What does God require of us? This is where today's scripture speaks directly to our situation. Do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with your God. 3 simple instructions. But what do they mean? Justice is about fairness, treating people with dignity and respect. Kindness is about showing compassion, especially to those in need. Walking humbly with God reminds us that we don't have all the answers. We do our best, and we trust God with the rest. I think sometimes we forget that instruction. Justice is action. God's call to justice goes back to the very beginning in Genesis 18:19. God tells Abraham to do righteousness and justice. Wayne Stapleton, in Justice and Righteousness, Love of Neighbors, in action, explains it this way. We should reflect God's justice in 2 ways. Inside our community, by treating each other fairly, and outside our community, by serving the world in love. And when we look at Jesus, we see him putting justice into action in the weeks leading up to Palm Sunday. He raised Lazarus from the dead in John 11. In Luke 13, he healed a woman who had suffered for years. He blessed little children in Luke 18. And from Mark 10, he gave sight to the blind Bartimaeus. Jesus didn't just talk about justice. He lived it through acts of mercy, even to the end of his life. But sometimes justice seems out of reach. What happens when justice feels impossible? What do we do when we can't fix everything? Steve Gardner, in Authentic Theology, reminds us, justice isn't about people getting what they deserve. It's about showing mercy and acting with kindness proactively. And Gary Haugen, founder of the International Justice Mission, puts it this way: God has a plan to bring justice to the world, and his plan is us. So we act, we do what we can, and we don't let regret consume us when we can't do it all. Nothing in Micah 6 says that. Now, you may be wondering, what happened to Seema? Virginia and I wrestled with what to do. Seema never complained, and we knew that speaking out could backfire on her. So instead, we chose to support her, watch out for her, and be her friend. Eventually, her employer was transferred back to Morocco. But before the family left, they asked Seema, what did she want to do? Her answer? She wanted to stay in the United States. They helped arrange a marriage between her and a local Moroccan immigrant with legal residency. That was her choice, her way to build a future for herself. Was it the perfect outcome? Maybe not, but it was her justice on her terms. Friends, the call of Micah 6:8 is not about fixing every problem. It's about showing up, acting with kindness, and walking with God. Justice isn't always instant. Mercy doesn't always look the way we expect. But when we choose to love, to care, to stand alongside those in need, we are doing what God requires. We won't always see the results, but we keep walking. We keep loving. We keep trusting. Because in the end, justice is not about what we do. It's about who we become. Amen. I wanted to share with you, this would be my sacred object. This is a teapot that Seema gave me. And it's a traditional Moroccan teapot. I have never put tea in there, but it stands on a very nice place in my home. Thank you.
Our worship here is ending. Our service here is ending. Let our service in the world begin. And so I will just point out that there is an offering plate here. If you want to put checks or cash in there, that's would be greatly appreciated. You can, of course, put your pledge on your memo line if you want to add your pledge via check. And donations can also be made online. Thank you.
Join me in the prayer of dedication. We want our ways to be the ways of God, with a thread of love in the web of life. So we practice solidarity.
We practice mutuality.
We practice generosity and asking for what we need. We gather our offerings, unfolding the ways in here and now.
Let us join together for the benediction. May the way-making God bless and guide you. May the Holy Wonder shine her face upon you. May expansive love seek you as you seek them and give you peace. So let's pass the peace to those around us. Thank you.